Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell with my good mate Marky Davison, as always, coming off a Steelers victory last week. Yes, can you believe it's almost been a week? But for when our audio listeners are listening to this through the podcast network, it will be there Sunday. It will be game day. Marky D, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. The old Steelers got a win, and I know it's been a long time. And even I asked you off air, I was like, "Have we talked about it yet? Have we talked about this win, in our personal lives or even on the end?" I don't think we have. So, the win to me was fantastic, and some Steel fans are like, "Oh, we're trying to tank." At the same time, you think about it, we're 2 or 3 games away from playoffs. Just keep winning and see what happens. And the game was pretty good. Like, I've been yelling at Matt Canada, fire Matt Canada. And I kind of like what he did last week. I thought he involved a lot of players. And on the defensive side, they didn't allow any points in the second half. I thought it was great. I thought it was really fun to watch. And I'm so keen now to see what can happen versus Joe Burrow.
And you pick up a good point there on what happened with the offense. And, I saw a narrative this week about, the Steelers had to adjust without Chase Claypool. I'm not saying he's the reason why the Steelers weren't winning, but geez, it looked more fluid without him.
Didn't it?
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I'm saying.
I don't even need to say any more than that. I just think it looks more fluid without him.
I'll say more than that. A lot of Steel fans loved him, and he's terrible. He's got 15 yards in the Bears in 2 games, and over I think only 30 snaps. It just didn't fit. And you're right. The Steelers offense looked a lot better without Chase Claypool, more players involved. Boykin, Sims, Connor Hayward was out there. It just seemed more fluent. Yes, it wasn't perfect. I'm not saying it is perfect. It's far from perfect, right? But everything looked better. And the common denominator right now is Chase Claypool's gone, and our team is playing better. And I'm just keen to see if they can improve this week against the Bengals, because it's going to be a fun matchup. But, hey, we got the win, right? You got to keep on pushing forward.
That's it. And the Steelers, and they did what they had to do, right? A positive record is still on the table. They had to win. That was one of those games that you're like, look, if you're going to split against the Ravens and the Bengals, you've got to win that game. And they did that, right? That's tick. And then when I spoke about with Shannon White, when we did the records in the bye, when you were out winning pickleball medals, he was saying that that's the game that would tick them over from 7-10 to 8-9. And I was saying, well, hey, I really like the Steelers 8-8 going into the last week against the Browns. I think the Steelers can win that game. So, particularly at home. So, yeah, I mean, the Steelers did get the win, and now they go into this Bengals game, a Bengals team that are 5-4. I thought we'd look at how the Bengals are situated, and then we can look at what the keys to victory were for the Steelers. But before I do that, it's important that we do this little injury report that we do on this show.
Yep.
So now the thing is, for those listening live, this is a really good understanding of where things are at, given that we've just kind of concluded Friday practice. But for those on the audio side, I was thinking about this on the podcast side. By this time, if someone's activated or in or it's out. So, it depends. This can be a little bit outdated, but at least when you think about it, even if guys get cleared to play, sort of what their injury status was heading into the weekend. So even if they're cleared to play, are they, fighting fit, or are they battling the niggles? And I know most players would be battling some sort of niggle this time of year. So Najee Harris, full practice all week. Game started unspecified. I think he plays. Keller Witherspoon is out with a hamstring. So, I mean, I'm not sure that's the deep sauce for Steelers. Marcus Allen, unspecified. Good. And I don't think we had unspecified for the Steelers either. So, I'm really, I can't, as I say every week, there's a different designation.
What does that mean? This, we don't want you to play.
Unspecified is I didn't fill out the report on time, and it's Friday. I want to go to the pub for a beer.
Sorry, Marcus Allen, there's no room for you, mate. You can't get on the bus. You're not allowed to come into the stadium.
Minka, I mean, I heard a rumor yesterday afternoon, our time, that he's going to come back after appendix surgery after 5 days. I don't know about this. Maybe he wears the Kevlar
I think he's back. I think there's been
I
some
reckon he'll be back. I just don't know how you do that after 5 days. But
he's a machine, mate. Mick is a machine.
We both said it at the same time.
He doesn't care. Like, he's just ready to go, and he hates Joe Burrow. So, let's go. I can't wait.
Did I say Wiggles or Niggles? I've got a bit of a cold. I swear to God, I said Niggles, not Wiggles. JJ52 in the live chat's like,
the Wiggles are like probably the most successful bands in history.
Yeah, and the leader wears yellow, black and gold. So
yeah.
All right, back to the injury report. Devin Bush unspecified. He was full practice Thursday, Friday. I reckon he plays. Trent Scott back full practice Thursday, Friday. Fine, his depth piece. TJ Watt, not injury related. He was resting, so he had a full practice on Wednesday. Did not practice on Thursday. Full practice Friday. This sounds like a typical loading plan when you're coming back from any injury. Mm-hmm. I reckon if the Steelers had been 1-7 instead of 2-6, he wouldn't have played last week because they would have been outside the positive record in the playoff hunt. I don't think he was fully 100%, and he probably won't be through.
And he still played.
But I think he was rawer
damn well.
Exactly. I just think he was rawer than what people assumed he might have been. Larry Ogunjobi, unspecified, but he had full practice after being limited on Thursday. He full practice on Friday. Jesse Davis, full practice Friday, unspecified. Cameron Hayward, he was resting on Thursday. Full practice Friday, he plays. Dotson did not practice on Wednesday. Limited practice on Thursday. Full practice on Friday. That's a hip. Again, that's probably a loading thing. You'd be surprised if he didn't play. Then we get to the Bengals side of things. Jamar Chase is out, according to this report. Lyle Collins did not practice Wednesday with a resting day. Practice Thursday, Friday. Game status is not unspecified, not a dash, not blank, 2 parentheses or brackets, and a dash in the middle. Who knows?
Just making it up.
These injury reports, I swear. Josh Tupu is out, defensive tackle. Here we go. Oh no, it's a questionable. It's not unspecified. What's the difference between a dash and a questionable and a? I don't know. Whatever. Chris Evans their running back is questionable. Trey Flowers is questionable. Mike Hilton full practice all week, even though he had a finger complaint. He's a dash and bracket, so assume he'll play. Daxton Hill is out. Dante Smith, their offensive tackle. Dash was limited practice did not practice Thursday, full practice Friday. I think he'd be there. Stanley Morgan, wide receiver, he rested on Wednesday for a personal matter, and then did not practice Thursday and Friday. But I think he's depth piece for him anyway. Eli Apple was a calf. He only had practice on Friday, which was limited, and it's not listed. So, yeah, that's kind of where they're sitting. But obviously the big names there are Lyle Collins, who you'd assume would play. Jamar Chase out. Daxton Hill out. Trey Flowers, if he's out, then puts a lot on Mike Hilton's shoulders in the secondary there. And Eli Apple. And you don't like a calf injury at the position of a cornerback. That's an injury that someone like a Deontay Johnson or a Pickens has got to exploit, because he's going to be a bit ginger in how he defends the pass and the receivers. So I don't know, when you hear that sort of injury report, it's looking a lot better on our side than it is on their side.
Yeah, well, I've got a question for you, right? Yeah. In this game, are we health-wise better off than week 1, I guess? Or are we more prepared, do you think?
I would say we're more battle-tested than week 1. I think we know what we do well and what we don't. And I think Pickett is more efficient. I've always thought Pickett's more efficient than Trubisky. So I think we're better.
Are you more confident going into this game? Because the media's counted out week 1. Everyone chose the Bengals. This week in week 11, the media is saying, well, only one person, Colleen Wolfley, she chose us, right? So I'm saying, like, week 1, they all thought Bengals were going to win. Now, 10 weeks later, most of them think the Bengals are going to win. But I feel more confident in winning this game at home than I did with the other one.
Well, and so I think in part 2, after we've done the break, I think we'll talk about the Steelers side of what I think they need to repeat from last week and what you think they need to repeat from last week. But I pulled up some stats. So the Bengals are obviously 5-4, right? Now on offense, they're top 5 in total yards, top 5 in TDs, top 5 in plays of 40 yards plus, and only one play behind being in the top 5 from of 20 yards plus. They are in the top 5 for the most sacked offense. They're in the top 2% for pass completion. But they're the bottom 4th in rush yards, the bottom 5 in yards for touchdowns. So, they're bottom 5 for rushing yards. So, from an offensive perspective, like it's a question, because if you can stop the pass with the Steelers defense, you're in it to you kind of in it to win it. But on the flip side, with their defense, they're top 7 in defense for yards allowed. So they've allowed the 7th least most yards. They're top 3 in TDs allowed, so the least amount of touchdowns allowed. They're the top 10 in interceptions, but they're the bottom 3 in sacks. So it's kind of funny, because when you look at these like overall stat lines, it's very much a team that's 5-4. There's some stats here that you're like, man, they could be 3-6 like the Steelers, but then there's other stats that you're like, wow, they should be like 8-1. They're kind of it's kind of a weird middle of the road team, but do you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing, is like, if you're in a close game, are they going to win that? I don't know.
Here's the thing, though. The Cincinnati Bengals, I just looked up the schedule. They have beaten New Orleans, Atlanta, and Carolina, right? Who do we face in a few weeks? Atlanta and Carolina. They lost to Cleveland. They lost to Baltimore. They lost to Pittsburgh. Are they really 5-4? They're overrated.
It's a good take, Mark. It's a really good take. And then you look at the Steelers, who lost against like the Jets, the Bills, the Eagles.
They beat the Jets and they beat the Dolphins, but Dolphins had they had no tour.
We should have won that game. We could have won that game though, right? Like that's a part, like that's a Kenny Tuxedo runs.
Yeah. And Miami, when Tua went out, he was going crazy, and the Bengals could have lost that game. So that could have been a loss, right? But the thing is, like, the NFC South, New Orleans, Atlanta, there are games that we can win in Atlanta and Carolina. So they haven't won a division game, which is quite scary, right? They're 0-3 in the division. And maybe they are a false 5-4. We got
well, if you beat them, that's a good point. I want to pick that point up. Is like, if they lose this week, they go 0-4 in the division. It's pretty hard to make the playoffs if you go 0-4 in your own division.
But to me, how are they even favored? I think, like, you look at the home field advantage. TJ's back, Minka's back, right? Or getting back, but Kazi's back, and the color rush, right? You went to the one they lost, didn't they? The 7-1, the Bills.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever go to a color rush one again.
Yeah, right. But there's all this stuff in our favor, and of course we are the underdog. But their favorite coming into Heinz Field or Acrisure, I don't understand. But they haven't won a game in the AFC North yet. And so we beat them 23-20. Baltimore beat them 19-17. And Cleveland smashed them. I love that game too, by the way. 32-13. Come on, man. And no Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow against TJ Watt. I think this is like, I'm getting real hot.
Yeah, but remember, they got TJ Hawkinson. Like, is it Hawkinson? Hendrickson. Hawkinson's the tight end. Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, I mean, he only just beat, like, if you look at some stats, he was ahead of TJ Watt last year, like on some stat levels, like the efficiency of his sack rate, right? So that's an interesting one. But I agree with you completely. Like, you look at the overall Steelers defense and you're like, well, hang on a second. We're going to shut out. And the thing is that I like is they have versed these teams that you've talked about that all really have had to focus on rushing the football because their quarterback play has been average. And they've still like not been able to fight that back with their own, rush attack. And I think about the Steelers and I'm like, well, I'm starting to feel a lot more confident in the secondary. I wouldn't say it's great. I still give it like a C+, but like I'm starting to feel a lot better about it, especially with the takeaways last week. I feel like we've got what we need to shut them down. So this is where it could be really interesting.
The Bengals have a tough schedule too as well coming out of this. They go to Pittsburgh, then they go to Tennessee, then versus KC, then versus Cleveland again, then versus Tampa Bay, then at New England, then Buffalo, Baltimore. Come on, man. They might not even make the playoffs. Like, they won't even make it.
They might finish with a negative record.
It'd be great. It'd be great to see.
So yeah, it's funny how things are developing as well. Like
They
even
had
even the
easy.
Titans winning in like 7-3. Is the
Yeah.
Titans team like I kept thinking like in my head they were still really bad, right? I'm not fully convinced, but if you think they're 7-3 and this Bengals team are 5-4, like it's just I think the Steelers. I think you're right though. I think you're right. You picked up exactly the right narrative. The Steelers, as we record live on a Friday night, it feels weird to say this, but this show will go to air on the audio side of YouTube on Sunday. The Steelers are in today's game, 100%. Then this is where it starts, and this is where what must the Steelers do to keep on winning is really important. Important discussion because they literally now could go on a 2-game winning streak, which would be their longest winning streak of the season so far. But we don't know. But we know what this team historically is like when they go on a run. We know what they start to put wins together. And the two of the big question games, apart from the Ravens, in this second half stretch of games, was New Orleans and the Bengals. So if you win those 2 games, that's where things start to get really juicy. And you remember I went through a couple of shows a couple of weeks back on the show around teams that had come back from like really poor records. I'd love to see the Steelers 2022 in there.
You did. I can't remember exactly, but you chose a few of them, right?
And said, since 1970.
Was it one team like 1-7 or something?
Yeah, it was. I've got it in my notebook. I can find it. But
yeah. But no, it seems to me the Bengals had an easier first half schedule where the Steelers had the hardest schedule, right? So if we can have it, I'm telling, look, it's not saying we go out there and just play normal football. No, you got to go out there and compete. You got to play some real hardcore football and get it done, right? And if they can do that, they're on the right track to then have a big matchup against the Colts. But in this game, what the Steelers need to do to keep winning is just play the similar way they played last week. Run the football and great defense. And I can see that. Like, I just don't see, I don't see where Joe Burrow in this offense can score 30 points like they're saying. I don't see it.
That's a really good point. Like, we do a lot of talking. I do a lot of talking about you need to be able to score 30 points to win in the NFL when you need to. And like,
they're not scoring 30 on us. Not
that's what I mean. But then that means we don't have to score 30.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the big thing is where we don't have to go chase a score because we're not ready for that. Like, and I still don't think that Matt Canada offense is capable of it, just personally. But I mean, on War Room this week, I talked about 5 or 6 things the Steelers did really, really well. And that was around, I thought that the fact they had net passing yards higher than the other team was a miracle, but they had double the yards of New Orleans. They had no turnovers, but were able to get 2 turnovers off them. They only had 3 penalties. So the Steelers didn't go backwards for once, which is huge.
Wow.
Their third down conversion, 9 of 17, above 50%, which meant collectively, and they had like 28 first downs versus New Orleans 10, which people don't really, I think people overlook first down. It's a lot, right? And it kept the drives going. 38 minutes and 56 seconds.
That's the best we've ever played this year.
Some of those stats are the best we've played in like, actually, when you look at it, like almost 2 years with Canada.
And then you'll hear that there's some narrative saying, "Oh, but they're only the Saints. We got to play who's in front of you," And they took care of it.
Saints defense is still, like, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Oh, it's only the Saints. I know you've got to play and play. Okay.
Well, then the same thing with the Bengals. It's like the narrative you just brought up. It's like only the Falcons, only the Panthers.
Yeah, and that's why they're 5-4, but we're still kind of close. Like, it would be great to get this win over them, for them to be 5-5, and then them go on a losing streak, and we can start going the other side too. Because I believe that with TJ Watt coming back, and we just, honest to goodness, him coming back, it sets everything on fire right now for this team to go into electric mode and get behind their team. And look, they're not looking at playoffs right now. They're looking at the next game. The next game is the Bengals, and they can win this one. They really can. I got more confidence in going into this than the first week because there is no Jamar Chase. There's no dudes like that, right? I don't see Mixon. I don't see Mixon going out there getting 150 like he did against the Panthers. No way. He won't get 150. They won't allow it. Defense won't allow it.
No,
they won't.
And the Steelers are in this. They're going to be up for this. They're coming off a win, which was coming off a bye. They got these players back, as you talk about. They got a chance to get one up against an AFC North rival. They got a chance to beat the Bengals at home. Like if this was away, right? Let's say everything happened that happened in week 1, but it was at home.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit like, I don't know here. But playing at home with all those things in tow, and they know that they got a little bit lucky with the whole long snapper thing.
Oh, 100%. The game should have been a loss easily.
But also the benefit the Steelers have is that Trubisky had a lot of tape, right? So the Bengals were able to put a lot of pressure on him. And didn't he have 2 or 3 interceptions in that first game? I think he did. And versus what with Kenny Pickett,
no
tape. Well, there's tape, but there's tape, but it's limited.
Kenny's starting to run now too. Like he's becoming like a little bit of a mobile threat.
That's it. There were 5 turnovers in the game.
Really?
Last time.
Oh, that's because Joe Burrow had 4 of them.
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky had 1 interception. That's right. He had 1 interception.
How did we do that?
Deontay Johnson had that key fumble. Remember he had that fumble?
Matty, mate, how do we do this for audio? The shiesty move, the Joe Burrow. I can't stand him, mate. I don't know. I just don't like the guy.
Oh, you'd love him if he was on the Steelers. You'd think he was the coolest guy. Yeah.
It's
It's like that whole Phillip Rivers narrative. Man, if Phillip Rivers was being a Steeler, like people would have loved it.
So you're saying if Joe Burrow was a Steeler, I would get behind him. I'd be wearing the Joe Shiesty, calling him the Joe Burr. You know, the Joe Burr show. I'd be right up the alley.
See, the only thing it's hard. You can't really say this because like Pickett went to like University of Pittsburgh, but Pickett and Burrow kind of have fairly similar backstories. Like I heard a lot of people going after the draft. Oh yeah, Pickett's Joe Burrow light kind of thing. He would never beat the narrative that Pickett has because Pickett played in Pittsburgh. But like, yeah, there is a lot of. But I think Pickett's way more mature. And I think that's a really cool thing that Pickett's more mature than that. Like he's ready for that mantle, considering what Burrow's done. So, I mean, you've got to remember, like Burrow's first year wasn't great, and obviously had the ACL injury. But it was topsy-turvy anyway for them. Look what they did in year 2. I'm not saying Steelers going to be in the Super Bowl next year. They've got a lot of work to do, but that stuff starts now.
Here's a question. I just looked at Burrow's stats, right? He's already been sacked 113 times and 30 times this year. That's pretty high, right? For a quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's top 5 in sacks. That's a lot.
So 51 last year, 32 in 2020. And he played 10 games and 30. Do you think like he's a bit like Joe Burrow a bit of a gamer? Because he seems to be like when he does get sacked, he just goes back to normal. It doesn't really phase him, right? Maybe he's so used to it.
Well, this is it, man.
7 times in week 1. I reckon this. I'm keen to see what can happen with. You say what must the Steelers do to keep winning? I'm keen to see what they can if they can back it up first of all, and I'm keen to see like if they can involve like Kazi and those dudes and stuff like that, right? And I just want to see them outsmart Joe Burrow. Don't let him take over the game, and you can't let Mixon run away with this game. Tyler Boyd and those dudes, sure they'll get the football, but I don't see them scoring as long as you don't allow things over the top. I think we got a chance. Got a chance this game.
Got a chance. Do you want to know? Do you want to know a very fun stat?
Always, mate. I love the stats.
I don't know how fun it is actually, but so the Bengals have been sacked 32 times, right? Joe Burrow. That sack yards is going backwards 213 yards. Right. Those 213 yards would be the second most for a Steelers rusher because only Najee Harris has 460 yards. Jalen Warren is only 190 and everyone else less than that. And we only have 3 receivers on the roster that have more receiving yards than that.
I don't know. I got a feeling like Kenny's got to find someone soon, man, doesn't he? Kenny's got to find a guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got to find. I think he's got to find Muth or he's got to find Pickens or something like that.
Muth and Pickens, man, it's coming.
He's got to start to develop that connection. I think that's going to start happening. And it was good to see the progression too of Kenny as well. Of course, he missed a few balls and some were a bit like, why did you throw that one there? But he's
a rookie, man. He's going to do that.
Well, he didn't throw interceptions last week, which was kind of good to see. Here's a
course.
question for you. Do you see Kenny Pickett throwing interception or Joe Burrow? Which one would you put money on?
Oh, Burrow throw one. The thing is, though, is that like Burrow has the wide receivers that, I mean, I think T. Higgins is one of the most underused and underrated wide receivers in the NFL.
That was the quickest.
I mean, I
answer
would
in-
trade if that, as Higgins comes off his deal, I would trade Deontay Johnson for Higgins straight away. Like, no questions asked.
That was the quickest answer in Steelers touchdown under history ever. Oh, he'll throw it.
But
I agree with you.
He's a gamer though, and like what you said, and he's the sort of guy that's like a Roethlisberger or a Bradshaw, where in the respect of I'm just gonna he's gonna throw interceptions, but he's also gonna throw TDs. But what the difference he doesn't have this week is that he doesn't have not Joe Mixon. He doesn't have Jamar Chase, and they don't have Azuma, but they've got Osmo or whatever who went to the Jets. But is this Hayden Hurst that they have? Hayden Hurst, and they do have Mixon who can do a bit in the receiving game. So and they do have T. Higgins, as we said, and Tyler Boyd. And Tyler Boyd ruined the Steelers, last year. I remember in that game at the start where they obliterated us in the first half of the season. So it's not like they've got nothing there. But Jamar Chase is a huge loss. Like their offense runs through him. I agree.
I agree 110%, mate. I think this is a big game for the Steelers.
That's and there's probably a good segue into catching a quick break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back in a couple of seconds. And we're back on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell with Marky D and Marky Davison. You were just saying that it was an important game for the Steelers. We talked a little bit about some of the cool things they did last week in the part one of the show. So I guess if there was one area that you had to hone in on, what's that one area that's going to win the game for them?
I got it for you. The biggest thing I liked about how we won last week and how we can keep winning this week is involving a lot of players on the offense. I really like the expansion. As much as I've been yelling out fire Matt Canada from down under, and you guys can hear me all over the world. And everyone has, right? Everyone has. We've been so critical of him. I like the expansion of involving Sims, Boykin, even Oshesky was in there. All right, they had all the players in there. Muth and Gentry. They passed the ball to Gentry. It didn't really work, right? They gave Sims a reverse. That didn't work either. But then they gave it to George Pickens and it worked.
They had nine people that were targeted. 7 people with 7 different players with a reception.
Right. I kind of like that. I kind of like that idea of how the offense flows like that. It keeps the defense on their toes. Now, I'm not too sure if that's a winning formula or if you should just go target your number one guy all the time. Maybe that's a better way. But I like that how they involved guys like Connor Hayward too. He got 2 touches. And I saw him run off the sidelines and you can kind of see like this feeling of like he did really well. And you're like, well, he made 2 good grabs. Maybe in this game, he gets 4 or 5 chances or they implement schemes or ideas to get in the football. That's what I like about the progression of the offense. I'm really intrigued about what's going to happen next. And of course, Najee and Warren were fantastic to watch last week.
Oh, they were great.
It was just
and that's what
fun,
I think
man.
the versatility allows you to do. But it's what you like, and that's the word, like, sharing around that versatility. And if you do a couple of weeks, this is how you put wins together, right? In a couple of weeks of doing this, what have you put on tape? You've put so much on tape that a defense has to scheme for.
That's right.
And you only need to get the matchup where they've guessed wrong and what you're running on the play. And this is also the bonus, which is also I'll start with the first part. That this is the bonus about having so many players get working in guys like Hayward and Warren. They are going to set up, and Freeman, they're going to set up on what look like run plays, right? And then that opens up the RPO or the play action because you're expecting, when Warren's rushing for decent yardage, you don't know what he's going to do, but you also know he's a good pass blocker as well. So there's that aspect, but it's also the part the big question mark on Najee, and I not want to get into the Najee wasn't worth the first round draft pick discussion. I think let's deal with that in a couple of years' time. But my big question on Najee Harris coming into the draft, when it was that last sort of week or two before the draft, everyone kept saying they're going to pick him, they're going to pick him, they're going to pick him. I'm like, I don't love what he does in the pass game. People said to me, no, he can catch the ball. I'm like, yeah, but he's not going to be anywhere near like a Le'Veon Bell. And I feel like a Javonte Williams who got picked after him at the time, I felt that that's what he was capable of, or even a Travis Etienne. Everyone was like, no, you catch the ball. Apart from Ben throwing it to him behind the line of scrimmage and him beating like 7 guys in the first 6 weeks last year, which it's easy on once you see that tape to start scheming against that. I never really have felt they've worked him into the passing game, and I still feel like that's an untapped part of the game, if that makes sense for the Steelers, is how are you working Najee in with short passing? I'm not saying he needs to be Alvin Kamara, but like, and I'm not talking about passes behind the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about passes in that sort of like between the line of scrimmage and 10 yards. How are you working Najee in there? I think that's something, and maybe that's Canada. I feel like that's something that would do well in the Canada offense, but maybe it's something that is the part 2 of the Canada offense that we haven't unlocked yet. You know, like a video game. Like it's like we're on level 1 and we haven't unlocked level 2.
I think we started at minus 10 and now, we're working our way up. But that's how it felt because Warren can.
Yeah, we were stuck on the tutorial mode. We couldn't get out of the tutorial mode.
Warren did some really good things as a pass catcher. And I went back and watched his combine. I saw highlights of his combine. I was like,
he had a great combine, man.
Yeah,
and it drafted.
And it looks exactly the same when he was running the routes, like he was playing in the practice or combine to what we see on game tape. The way he runs those wheel routes or out of the backfield is fantastic, and he's such a great receiver. But you're right. If we get Najee involved in the pass game too, this thing is, I guess, it is leveling up or it is building layers, and that's what a good offensive coordinator needs to do is build layers, right?
Yeah.
Know what players do well, and that's what I'm excited, and that's what's pretty much, what must the Steelers keep to do on winning is building layers. Now they can go backwards. Oh boy, they can go backwards. It can happen, but I kind of see like Kenny Pickett's getting more comfortable, right? They're going to start to develop the deep ball to Pickens. They're going to get Frymouth more involved, and I believe you're building this playbook that at any time you can run a reverse or do this. Because I was pretty shocked. I don't know about you. I was shocked about that George Pickens reverse. I was like, I didn't see that coming at all. And then he ran away.
I kind of wondered. I didn't see it coming because I thought they'd decided that stuff wasn't going to work, and then it did work. So it's kind of funny. I mean, Brian Brown says, "Don't the Steelers do enough short passing?" I agree, but you start working Najee in, then Pickens and Freiermuth and Deontay can go further down the field, right? And you're having to when a guy like Najee is getting the ball that short, they're going to have to load up the box. Like it's all about that overall offensive strategy that I'm talking about. And I think if you unlock Najee there, and I thought that even with Ben, if you unlock Najee there, you unlock time down the field. Like I just think that's a critical component. But anyway.
And they even featured Derek Watt to a certain degree, a tiny bit too. He got the 4th down and 1 when DJ ran backwards. He caught the ball and ran backwards 2 yards to get minus. They went 4th and 1. They got Derek Watt involved. Kenny Pickett's been used quite a few times in the QB sneak. Like he's got the mentality to go forward. A lot of these guys got the mentality to go forward.
I love when Kenny. Every time Kenny does it, I'm like, why are you doing it? But also, I love it.
It's working, right? He's got 3 TDs. Yes, he's only got 2 TDs in the end. He got 8 interceptions, sure, going through, but he's got 3 TDs on the ground. It's going pretty good.
George Tesson says match up Najee with the DBs. Exactly.
Here's a question for you. Would you, if say for instance that Kenny gets more rushing TDs and passing, are you okay with that, or is that like is they going to sit not well in your stomach for the offseason? Say, you didn't develop as a passer.
No, I don't care year 1.
Points are points.
Points are points. But year 2, I'd be worried. The other thing is for me is what's the interception to touchdown ratio?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Right.
So now it's bad.
Right now, like if I pull up Pickett, I think it's like
2 to 8.
4
I
and
think
6. Is it 2? Is it 2?
Nah, he's got 8. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2 and 8. You can double check though.
I'll pull it up. Yeah, so he's 2 and 8. You're right. 2 and 8. Right. But his rushing touchdowns, he's had 3, right?
Yeah.
Now, I did a comparison a while back, and it was so funny. I did the whole Josh Allen, Kenny Pickett comparison, and then 3 days on War Room, and then 2 days later, I was hearing about it everywhere else. I was like, did even the Steelers listen to? Because they had it on the what's their running backs? Merrill. Mental blank. Anyway, he does the show on the Steelers.
They're sitting there like,
and I'm like,
when's Matty going on?
War? Like,
yeah, they're scoping you out. Like,
but they're well, I mean, if I came up with it, I'm sure other people could come up with it, right?
Nah, man, it was your idea first.
It was
Hodge.
just so funny. Like I said it,
Hodge.
and then I was like, so funny.
Man, Merrill Hodge looks like he could play now. He's like one of the fittest.
Man.
One of the
He's
fittest. Get him out there.
But if you look at Josh Allen, right? He had 10 TDs, 12 interceptions. I think Kenny's going to have a few more than that. But Josh Allen, I think, had a bit more around him in 2018. But then if you look at the rushing side, he had 8 TDs in his rookie year, right? So I don't deeply worry about. But then he had 9 the next year, 8 the next year, 6. He had only 6 last year. He's only had 4 this year, right? So I'm fine with it, but do it. If you're gonna do it, you got to get the points, and if you're gonna do it in a way where you're not going to get injured.
Yeah, but that one run he did down the middle, he was very smart with the football and smart with his body.
Oh, he was.
He slid way before than he needed to, and it was great.
Well, if you can fake slide, you can slide.
Yeah, that's we can't do that in the NFL. I don't think we're allowed. But okay, here's another question. What about the red zone offense? Are you a bit worrisome about the red zone offense? Because we can't score TDs. Our biggest TDs within 8 yards or whatever.
I am, from the perspective of you need to be able to do that sometimes to win points, and when you go up against teams, particularly like down. I mean, we don't have the Chiefs until we make the playoffs, right? But there are some, even the Ravens. There are some teams that to score touchdowns, you're not going to get that close to the line. You're going to be 3rd down and 3rd and 8 or something on like the 12-yard line or on the 13-yard line or on the 14-yard line, or dial it right back to the 20 where the red zone stops. So it is a concern for me. And the other reason it's a concern is we're not scoring like long touchdowns. Do you know what I mean? Like we're not even scoring the odd, we got into their half and we dropped a dime, or, there was a mismatch, or, a cornerback fell over, or whatever it is, right? So it certainly makes it harder to be successful, but, we won last week. You gotta be hopeful that we've turned a corner.
I think so. I think it's just Kenny's progression so far. Of course, that one, that interception to the Jets, and of course the first one to Claypool, which he couldn't high point the ball, it wasn't his fault. But the one to the Jets, where we could have won that game, and he threw it out of bounds, but it wasn't going out of bounds. That kind of stuff he's learning from. The one against the Dolphins was, I'm losing my voice now too. It was awful. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, but that's a rookie quarterback, man. Like Terry Bradshaw, 20. Didn't he have like 23? I think he said. I said he quoted like 23 interceptions in an interview.
Threw it up to anyone.
I don't know. It's frustrating to watch, but I also sit there. I'm like, well, you won. You got better by it. If you're too afraid of failure, you don't win without failure. Like the best technology we have today was built on how many failures. Didn't like Edison do like 180 experiments before he did Edison was the Bell was the Bell. Edison was the light globe, and Bell was the guy that created the telephone, right? Man, I need my coffee today. This is a shocker. But Bradshaw had 6 TDs and 24 interceptions in 1970, mate. We put up with that. Rushing, he had 1 TD. There you go.
It's kind of funny because you're speaking of failure. Like if this, Steelers touchdown under is a failure, you could always, I guess, go and find guys from New Zealand, and it'd be touchdown into. That'd be different, wouldn't it?
Land of the long white cloud.
Speaking of jandals. Why do they call them jandals? I don't understand.
Do you know what? We had this slang for a while, and Mark and I kind of ran out of slang that was acceptable on the show. Like after 2 years, it's just hard, man. Like other stuff's starting to get like, not PG. We're a family show. We could start a New Zealand slang.
Oh, sure, bro. Am I allowed to say that? Is that culturally appropriate? I don't even know.
I don't know, man.
Am I getting in trouble for that one?
I don't know, maybe.
Hope we have some New Zealand listeners.
Kiwis across the ditch.
But you're right, man. You're right. It's all about if you're, going with Kenny Pickett and fouling. Like I don't think he's going to throw that one to the Miami Dolphin receiver again. He's going to run that ball, And that's why I like that play, that 23-yard run. I thought it was fantastic. Everything broke down. Nothing was open. He ran down, slid down, and then he was getting a. He gave.
The thing
it
is,
was Kenny's full
we
game.
weren't capable of that last year, right? So that's something in this offense, and you talk about mobility. That's what Tomlin meant by mobility. He didn't mean the Steelers are going to want to go get a Lamar Jackson type, right? What he meant was mobility when it collapses. And the thing I like about Kenny too, I've always liked his pocket presence, and I feel like that's getting better as well. And that's I think a very hard thing for a rookie in the NFL when it's the speed of the game. What do you think? I keep hearing this narrative that Deontay Johnson's the third most open wide receiver in the league, behind like Tyreek Hill and who's the other one? I forget who the other one was, but like,
okay.
And I sit there, I'm like, yeah, okay,
all right,
but that doesn't mean that's not on the quarterbacks to just haven't hit him. Like, I don't know.
It's really easy to say that stuff when he's open. But you put yourself in the position. I never played quarterback, but I can't even imagine that 5 people rushing me and I'm trying to find my guy. The quarterback is the most important position on the field. And yes, they could be open, but that doesn't mean the quarterback's going to see them. They might look left one time and look back right, and then DJ's open, right? Or sometimes film can be deceiving where you throw the football, and then when the football's in midair, the safety and the cornerback have already broken off that guy, and then he looks open, right? I don't really trust that stuff, to be honest. I think that, look, Kenny's going to go through his progressions, but it's pretty hard to label him a bust or whatever because he's not finding open receivers. Give him time to figure this out.
Plus, and particularly, I think there's more Trubisky than Pickett. But if you're dropping key balls, when the quarterback is reading at a split second, you're looking and you're like, Freiermuth there. It just doesn't make sense on the audio. On the visual side right now, I'm looking across the thing, but like think visually, like, oh yeah, on my right, I've got like Pickens is running down the field and Freiermuth's cutting into the middle and the field, and then Deontay is kind of hovering at like in an intermediate passing range, but he looks like he might be covered, but I know he's and then I'm going to throw it to these guys, or he's open, but I can see a defender within his, they're playing zone within his vicinity because he's dropped a bunch of balls. Subconsciously, even though you would sit there and you're like, if you're open, you throw it to him, you'd still be sitting there in the back of your mind as you're processing. And I'm sure if it's subconscious in that split second, it's like there's probably a bit of doubt that comes into play.
Plus, every receiver says they're open anyway when they're not. Right? They know they say they're open. I think the position is like, until you put yourself in those shoes, and if you have any quarterbacks who have played the game, because I haven't played the game, right? But I still would say pretty hard, Of course, if he's going to be open, but you're going through a million things in your head going, who can I target? Where am I going to?
That's what I'm saying.
The D-line is getting after you. So that to me is like, and if it's wide open and he's like staring down the field, you can't see him, sure. But if you're not looking that direction, but it all comes back to schematics too and scheme and trying to figure out, what's his first read, if this happens, all that kind of stuff. He's learning as we go.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, I mean, I just think it's funny when I hear like a narrative like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, okay.
They bring it up all the time with all this kind of stuff. They're going to call Kenny a bust within, how many of the games he's played. But to me, you got to give him the whole season and figure out the off season, see what can happen,
He didn't have the full off season as a starter. I tell you, like going to next year and going into year 3 in 2024, I think we're going to look back on this stuff and go, it's just growing pains. And I don't even think it's that bad, man, to be honest. Like, you can't sit there and say Kenny Pickett, apart from maybe Miami, and even still, he played really well, like in several drives that they had there to get them into even a chance to win. You're not sitting here going each week, Kenny had 5 fumbles that lost the game. Kenny had 9, a billion interceptions that lost the game. Kenny missed all his receivers. Like, even the interceptions against the Jets, like 2 of them don't happen if Claypool knows how to catch high and run a route properly. And the other one was, a tip ball from Freiermuth. And, a play, if it was Deontay Johnson in that position, he would have never been near the ball. It would have gone out, right? So, like, for me, I'm a lot more confident in What are you laughing at?
Well,
It's
I'm
funny.
saying if DJ was in that position, you're saying you wouldn't even try to catch it. Therefore, it would have been.
You wouldn't try to catch him, but he was too short, right? It's like, did you see that narrative? See the narrative about the Bills? The game obviously got moved with the 6 feet of snow, and there was a social media post. Sorry, I know I'm going off topic here, but it was like Devin Singletary is like 5'7", and the other running back is like 5'11". They're under 6 feet of snow. They'd be running within the snow like it's above their height. Like,
that would have been great.
that would have been a great game, man. I reckon they should have left it there.
Man, I love snow games. Even
me too,
the
man.
Green Bay one and Tennessee. Maybe because it cools us down when it's so hot in Australia. But I was Green Bay versus Tennessee. It was awesome to see yesterday. A little bit of snow. I love that one. Was it LaShawn McCoy? Did he? No, it was Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell for us. Did he carve him up? I can't remember.
He carved up in the snow one year for us, but no, there was that game. Remember the Bills did it to make the playoffs for the first time in like forever, and
he's running wild, right? Because he just
and it was just like it was like you're watching someone like you're watching family play like on Christmas Day or something like that.
Because he was like the only one out there with footing. He understood how to play in the snow. No one else did. He got like over 200 yards. But I did see that meme as well. So it's like, yeah, that's funny.
Michael O'Malley says DJ suspect should have drafted a new wide receiver. I could be wrong. He might become a great. Yeah, I think a few of us are in that camp. But hey, like it's not like he's terrible. He could be worse. He could be like Dante Moncrief.
Yeah,
that
was a lot of hype for that one, and then you just instantaneously saw that through the hands and cut. Like, that was really.
I was so keen, like, because Moncrief was doing well for the Colts, man, when we did that.
And just nothing worked out. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. All right, so to wrap up the show, though, like, what are the top 3 things you're looking for in this game, or who are you looking for to step up? I mean, Highsmith's number 4 again in the sack totals, which is cool.
First of all, I'm going to start with TJ Watt. I'm keen to see him just chase Burrow around 110%. I think he's got a vendetta against Burrow. I really do. And then you know what? Second of all, I think Minka's got a vendetta against Burrow too. So that can be my second point. But lastly, I'm really looking forward to, and I want to emphasize the point, if the offense can start to keep this ball rolling. I want to see if Matt Canada can really design these plays like he did last week, get the running game involved, and get players of football like Pickens, DJ in certain scenarios, or Sims involved or Hayward, stuff like that. I want to see that progress forward even more. And Kenny getting, 1 or 2 TDs and just building the playbook and just building the confidence in that offense, because we definitely need that. I think that's, to me, I want to see if they go backwards, it's going to be so frustrating, but if they go forwards, it's going to be very exciting to watch. Get the ball to Warren, get the ball to Najee, get the ball to these guys, Play like you did last week, but just play a little bit better. And if Matthew Wright can kick field goals with 26 points, but if we design some plays where we get TDs, we could be 31 points, right? The offense was moving the football down the field. They just couldn't execute on certain plays.
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's Pickens 100-yard game, please. Freemuth.
You reckon it's a breakout?
Yeah, Freemuth 1 TD at least, 40, 60 yards, receptions. Jalen Warren busts a run for 20 plus. I want to see that. And I want to see, do you know what I want to see? I want to see Cam Hayward shove Burrow in the dirt, right? You always talk about putting Burrow in the dirt. I think it's a Cam Hayward comeback game with TJ Watt there. Ease the pressure up. Get the old man strong, shove him in the dirt. So that's what I want to see.
Even Ogunjobi too. Ogunjobi might have a bit of a,
man,
as well. It could be,
especially against one of his former teams. Remember that narrative.
Yeah, so this could happen. Like, there's a lot of things around this. And then Miles Jack coming back too. I think he was playing out last week. So this is a game that I
want to see Najee truck Hilton as well down the box. Just truck him. Just be like, you went to the wrong team.
What about Pickens off the ball and this Pickens versus Hilton?
Oh, man. I'm Pickens all the way, man.
So this can happen. Like, they have a lot of small corners, right? I think.
Yeah, they do.
Like, size-wise. So get Muth on them, get Pickens on them. This would probably be the most hyped I'm for them this year. So if we lose, it's going to hurt a lot. But I think we got.
Well, like a Minka forced fumble, big hit, comeback, or Terrell Edmonds on Tyler Boyd. I dislike Tyler Boyd. I think
Here's a question for you: do you think we get a safety in this game? Is there a chance that Joe Burrow gets backed up and tries to be fancy? We get a safety? No chance.
No.
Yeah. Do you want to give away your scores? Are we doing scores or what?
Oh yeah, all right. I picked the score in the Jets game. I forgot about that. What have the Steelers had the last few weeks?
Oh,
I'm going to
I'll
go
go
24 Steelers,
yeah.
and it'll be something like if they're going to win, it'll be like 24-21 or 24-17.
Okay.
But if
I'm
they
gonna
lose,
go.
I'm going to say if they lose, the Steelers are going to be like 20, and the Bengals are going to be like 33.
Oh, that's a real bad game. I'm gonna go Steelers 31 to Bengals 13.
You're going to say they're going to break 30 points.
I think so. I got a feeling it's color rush, man. I got a feeling the defense is going to put us in a situation to score points.
If that's what they do, the color rush, like the legend of the color rush, continue. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it goes to that next level.
They played some good football on that. They beat the Panthers like 500-0 or something one year.
I want to bring back the Batman jersey. I want to get a Batman jersey again. And
I don't even mind
on the website.
The Bumblebee was pretty cool. I didn't mind that one either.
I don't want to either. People don't like the pants, but they could just wear black pants. They could do like a hybrid.
I just like seeing. I used to like Heath Miller. I want to get a Heath Miller one. I think the Bumblebee. But no, there's something about this uniform. I think the Steelers can put it all together. But of course, dude, they're still building the offense like we talked about, right? So maybe they won't get 30, but maybe they'll get 26 or 24. You know, they're still building this offense as we go. So, but the defense can get a short field for sure.
Have I missed something with the color rush pigeons?
Oh yeah.
I've missed something here. And Michael O'Malley's like, "Jet pigeon power."
Me and Owen talked about it on our podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate, and it was funny as it was just we if they show up in the color rush, the pigeons, we're good to go. We are good to go.
Why pigeons?
Because the pigeons have been we're 2-0 when the pigeons are on the field.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's great.
But if we lose, then we're. I think they're not showing next week. I don't think they're coming because there's no seed on the field this time around. We'll see. They've been putting grass seed on the field to grow the grass, and pigeons have been coming over. But this week they said
I've totally missed that narrative.
Yeah, this week in an article I found, they said that they didn't throw the seed out this week, so they might not be there. So therefore, there's
all right. If there is any Steeler listeners listening live just on YouTube or Facebook, or other ones listening on the audio side, I don't know how you're going to do it and not get in trouble. Find a way to throw some seed on that damn ground.
Yeah, but if they do show up and we lose, then we blame the pigeons. It's an easy out.
I've got a new lucky shirt too. I wore a new shirt last week. A new Steelers shirt.
Can I wear my Antonio Brown color rush? Is that allowed?
Please don't. Anyway, I think with that, we're going to close down the show, Marky D. But that wraps up this week's Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell with Marky D, as always.
Go Steelers.